Hello Fast Fam, thanks for tuning in. I'm Craig Lieberman and I've been tinkering on cars since 1980. I've owned more than 40 cars in my life. Some were heroes, some were zeros. But never in my wildest dreams would I ever guess that 3 of my cars would go on to star in a motion picture franchise. My Supra, my GTR, and my Maxima all had starring roles in Universal's Fast and Furious movies. Over the next 3 years, I'd served Universal as a technical advisor. I helped choose the cars, procure the parts, oversee their builds, and support both production and post-production. I have some cool stories to tell about what it was like to build these cars and to work with the cast. I was there, on set, in the production meetings, working on cars, hanging with the actors, and consulting on post-production. So follow along as I tell the stories. Let's jump in. One of the most iconic scenes in the first movie is the Eclipse exploding. It was memorable for a lot of reasons, not the least of which being that it was a damn shame to destroy a perfectly good car. We've seen special effects like this in many movies over the years, but I think few people understand what went into shooting this scene. The task of pulling off this stunt fell to special effects guru Matt Sweeney. For those of you who don't know, Matt Sweeney has worked on several of the Fast and Furious movies. In the first movie alone, in fact, he was instrumental in developing more than 150 visual effects shots. To pull off such a sequence, lots of preparation is done. For starters, the interior is stripped of all flammable parts, carpeting, wiring, insulation, seats, and of course the gas tank. To make the car light enough to be lifted by an explosion, much of the running gear had to go. That includes the seats, the engine, the transmission, sway bars, exhaust, and many other components. The windows were tinted very dark so that you could not see that the car was gutted, and the doors were attached only by the front door hinges and bicycle lock-style cables to keep them from extending too far. But we weren't done yet. Inside the car, still more prep work needed to be done. To get the fire effect because, as we can see here, the car catches fire from the gunfire before it explodes. So to do this, we had to install some more equipment. In a case like this, special effects people will sometimes use a propane-fueled flame bar like this one to light the car. It's similar to a propane barbecue setup, and just like in a barbecue, propane is often used. The special effects team will also coat various surfaces of the car with a napalm-like substance, which could be anything from contact cement to a proprietary mix of various compounds. The idea is that, once the explosion goes off, this mixture needs to spread to other areas of the car to engulf it in flame and make for a more spectacular explosion. You can see the result of this when the flames spread to the surfaces both inside and outside the car. In some areas, the flame is blue in color, which is a clear sign that other compounds beyond propane are serving as fuel. To launch the car straight up in the air, a mortar-style device is used. There are many ways to do this, including using an air cannon with a short piece of a telephone pole to fire downwards. In other cases, a combination of air and chemicals are used to provide the upward thrust. Since much of the equipment had been stripped out of the car, we had to add some structural supports inside the car to ensure that the car didn't come apart because of the explosive force. Now, the explosive chemicals they use are proprietary secrets, as each visual effects master has their own methods. Sometimes they use a helix, which stands for a high-energy liquid explosive, which essentially is a binary form of explosive called that because it's comprised of 2 parts. Special effects people are pretty hush-hush about their techniques, so I don't want to get into too much detail. I will tell you that the glass was changed from safety glass to a different type of glass that will shatter and fly apart, which helps the flames to expand further and provides for a more spectacular effect. With the car now gutted, it was time to start rigging the car for the explosion. The first part of the explosion sees the car get shot up by Johnny Tran and his cousin Lance. In case anyone's interested, the weapons they used were micro Uzi pistols with suppressors. To do this is pretty complicated. First, fake bullet holes are drilled into the car using a tool like this one. Once the holes are in place, they are covered by Bondo body filler and in this case painted over to hide the pre-drilled holes. To do the actual bullet impacts, squibs were used. Squibs are usually electronically triggered mini explosives, sort of like firecrackers, or in some cases, little air pumps like this one. The squibs are hooked up behind the newly drilled holes in the body and hooked up to a remote controller. For the bullet holes in the glass, visual effects people can use any number of tools, including glass poppers like these, which are also remotely triggered. Although we had 6 Eclipses, 7 if you count the Mick rig, we had only 1 car for this gag, so we had to get it right. The car we used was a 1996 GS Eclipse, which was originally black. It was car number 3, and it was selected to be our sacrificial lamb. The first part of this scene was filmed at the T&K Food Mart in Little Saigon, located in Westminster, California. But the actual explosion was really filmed a few blocks away at the Cultural Court, also in Little Saigon. That location looks quite different today than it did back in 2000, but it's still recognizable. With everything ready, we set up the cameras for the shot. We had at least 4 or 5 camera angles on this shot. The flame burners light the car for a few seconds, then we shut the burners off and reposition the cameras. We had at least 4 or 5 camera angles on the shot, and on one angle, if you slow it down, you can see a vertical column of thrust from underneath the car, driving it into the air like a rocket engine. If you look closely, you can see something that looks like a piece of telephone pole in the fire, which suggests that an air cannon was indeed the method to use to lift the car, although it's not uncommon to use explosives, as I mentioned earlier. Of course, Dom's line about the NOS was a bit out of place. Nitrous oxide is combustible, it is not flammable, so it was bullshit. But again, the producers didn't think anybody would know. And so, Brian's Eclipse is done. The movie doesn't provide any further details as to the car's final fate as far as the story goes, but in real life, the car now sits in a car museum in Las Vegas, Nevada. The car looks more or less the same as it did the morning after the explosion. It's a sad end to a great car. No word on why the museum owners haven't restored the car to its former glory, which is even sadder. That said, kudos to Matt Sweeney and his entire team, and indeed to all of the special effects people who worked on this film and the others. That's it for this time, folks. Thanks again for watching, and please, please subscribe so that I can continue to bring you more videos. Take care.